Dr. Amanda Miller stared at her computer screen, her coffee growing cold beside her keyboard. The translation matrix she'd developed was throwing up red flags again, but this time the pattern was undeniable. She ran her fingers through her disheveled blonde hair, a nervous habit she'd developed during her 15 years of studying theoretical xenolinguistics, a field that had become drastically less theoretical 6 months ago. "Hey, Doc," Major James Cooper's voice came from her office doorway. "You missed the morning briefing. The Council's pretty excited about the Zarkax's latest tech offering. Some kind of gravity manipulation system." Amanda didn't look up. "Did they happen to mention why a supposedly peaceful species needs artificial gravity strong enough to crush a battleship?" Cooper stepped into the office, quietly closing the door behind him. At 6'2", his frame filled the small space of her basement office at the United Nations First Contact Center. "You found something. Remember how their language uses mathematical patterns as grammar structures?" Amanda pulled up a holographic display, showing streams of alien text. "I've been running their diplomatic messages through a pattern recognition system. Look at these recurring sequences." Cooper leaned in, his military training evident in his rigid posture. "Those look like battle formations," Amanda finished. "Their peaceful greetings contain embedded tactical data. When they say they're studying our cities for cultural exchange, they're actually mapping strategic targets." She pulled up another display, this one showing the locations of all Zarkax observation posts on Mars. And here's the real kicker. Their bases form a perfect containment grid, the kind you'd use to prevent planetary evacuation. Cooper's jaw tightened. "How sure are you about this?" "Remember that cultural database they shared last week? I found a way to decode their encryption. It's not a database of their art and literature." Amanda typed rapidly, bringing up translated sections of text. "It's a military assessment. They're calling us primitive warriors with concerning potential. There's a whole section about how we need to be contained before we develop any further." "Jesus," Cooper muttered, reading through the translations. "We've got to take this to the Council." "Already tried." Amanda stood up, pacing her small office. "Counselor Edwards said I was being paranoid. Said I was trying to sabotage humanity's greatest opportunity for advancement. They're all so blinded by the Zarkax's technological gifts that they can't see what's really happening." A gentle chime interrupted them. Another transmission from the Zarkax mothership in orbit. Amanda quickly routed it through her translation matrix. As the message decoded, her face paled. "What is it?" Cooper asked, moving to look over her shoulder. "They're advancing their timeline. Look at these embedded patterns. They're describing deployment sequences. James, they're not waiting anymore. Whatever they're planning, it's happening soon." Cooper straightened, years of military command kicking in. "How long?" "Based on these rhythmic structures, days, maybe hours." Amanda began downloading her evidence to a secure drive. "We need to get this to someone who will listen. Someone with enough authority to prepare a defense." "I know someone," Cooper said, pulling out his encrypted phone. "General Richardson. She's been skeptical of the Zarkax from the start. She's got a whole contingency plan in place, but she needs proof to activate it." Amanda nodded, gathering her data. As she reached for her coffee, she noticed it was shaking, not from her hand, but from a low vibration running through the entire building. She shared a look with Cooper. "That's not normal seismic activity," he said, moving to the window. Above the New York skyline, massive shapes were emerging from the cloud cover. Zarkax ships, dozens of them. Far more than the 3 they'd initially sent for diplomatic relations. "We're out of time," Amanda whispered, clutching her drive. "They're not here to negotiate anymore." Cooper grabbed her arm, already moving toward the door. "Then we better make sure humanity isn't caught completely off guard. Come on, Doc. We've got a species to save." The vibrations grew stronger as they ran through the underground corridors of the First Contact Center. Above them, humanity's greatest deception was about to be revealed, and their only hope lay in reaching General Richardson. before the Zarkax could launch their real first contact protocol, one that had nothing to do with peace. General Emily Richardson stood at the World Technology Summit's podium, her weathered features illuminated by the Geneva Convention Center's lights. Dr. Miller's evidence played across the massive screens behind her, while diplomatic representatives from 100 nations watched in stunned silence. As you can see, Richardson's voice carried across the hall. The Zarkax's peaceful overtures have been a calculated deception. Dr. Miller's translations. The ceiling-high windows darkened as massive shapes blocked out the morning sun. Ambassador Kovacs materialized on the stage in a flash of blue light, his crystalline exoskeleton catching the remaining sunlight. The alien's translator hummed to life. "Your primitive encryption protocols are pathetic." Kovacs's synthesized voice echoed through the chamber. "Did you truly believe we wouldn't detect your investigation into our secure databases?" Richardson didn't flinch. Her hand stayed steady near the small button beneath the podium, the signal she'd been waiting to give. "And did you truly believe we'd leave our survival up to chance, Ambassador?" Kovacs's secondary eyes blinked in their species' expression of amusement. "Humanity has proven itself exactly as we assessed: violent, paranoid, and unworthy of equal status among spacefaring races. You will be given a simple choice: surrender and accept integration into the collective as a servant species, or face immediate pacification." The chamber erupted in shouts and protests. Richardson's gaze met Dr. Miller's in the front row, giving her the briefest nod. Miller immediately began typing on her tablet, transmitting the aliens' threats to every news outlet globally. No matter what happened next, the world would know the truth. "You speak of violence," Richardson replied, her voice cutting through the chaos. "Yet you came here with weapons hidden behind words of peace. You speak of paranoia, yet you feared our potential enough to plan our enslavement. As for being unworthy," her finger pressed the button. Across the solar system, hidden human defense platforms activated. The Zarkax's supposedly secret military bases on Mars erupted in simultaneous explosions. Kovacs's crystalline form shimmered in agitation as reports flooded his neural link. "Impossible," the alien commander hissed. "Our surveillance was perfect. Our analysis showed no indication that we'd remember our own history." Richardson smiled grimly. "Humanity has been preparing for this moment since we first looked at the stars. Every nuclear bunker from the Cold War, every hidden military installation. We never fully decommissioned them. We just waited, watched, and planned." Kovacs raised his arm, biomechanical weapons emerging from his exoskeleton. "Then you choose extinction." The explosion that followed wasn't from alien weapons. The convention center's floor split open, revealing a reinforced bunker entrance. As security teams evacuated the diplomats through predetermined routes, Richardson stood her ground. "No, Ambassador. You chose this war the moment you underestimated us." The first orbital strikes hit Geneva seconds later. Kovacs's ships rained destruction from above, but beneath the city, a vast network of tunnels and bunkers, built generations ago and maintained in secret, protected thousands. Similar scenes played out across the globe as humanity enacted contingency plans developed over centuries of preparing for the worst. In a hardened command center 200 meters beneath the Swiss Alps, Richardson watched the initial damage reports through encrypted feeds. Dr. Miller worked nearby, coordinating with linguistic teams to decrypt alien communications. "Casualties," Richardson asked her command staff. "Lower than projected," Colonel Sanders reported. "The bunker network caught them off guard. They expected us to gather in the open, trying to evacuate cities. Instead, we went down and deep. Preliminary numbers suggest we saved 60% of the urban population." Miller looked up from her station. "General, I'm detecting massive energy buildups in their fleet. I think this was just the first wave." Richardson nodded, walking to the central tactical display. Red dots showed Zarkax ships positioning themselves around major population centers. "Good. Let them think they've won this round. Operation Scattered Thunder is already in motion." She turned to her assembled staff, humanity's last line of military command. Ladies and gentlemen, everything we've planned for, everything we've hidden and maintained and prepared in secret, it all comes down to the next 48 hours. The Zarkax want to break us. Her eyes hardened with determination. Let's show them what happens when humanity fights back. Above them, the aliens began their second wave of attacks, unaware that their perfect strategy was about to meet humanity's greatest talent, surviving the impossible. Kevin Thompson crouched behind a burned-out car, his gaming headset repurposed into a tactical command interface. 6 months ago, he'd been winning international StarCraft tournaments. Now he was directing guerrilla strikes against alien patrols in the ruins of Seattle. Shadow Team, hold position, he whispered into his mic. Enemy pattern matching previous routes. 3-second variance. His fingers twitched, muscle memory from thousands of hours of competitive gaming, helping him track multiple team movements simultaneously. Colonel Lisa Martinez watched the former pro gamer work, still amazed at how his seemingly random strategies consistently confused the alien combat systems. Talk me through it, Thompson. What are you seeing? The Zarkax eye uses perfect geometric patterns, Kevin explained, his eyes darting between holographic overlays. Just like top-tier gaming eye, it can't handle real randomness. Watch this. He switched channels. Eagle 2, execute strategy Pokemon. Martinez raised an eyebrow, but kept quiet. She'd learned to trust the kid's unconventional call signs. Across the street, 3 resistance fighters burst from cover, running in a zigzag pattern that seemed chaotic, but matched exactly how Pokemon trainers moved in the classic games. The alien patrol's tracking systems faltered, their weapons firing at predicted locations, while the humans moved through childhood muscle memory. Their targeting systems are calibrated for military doctrine. Kevin grinned, watching the aliens' formation break apart in confusion. They literally can't compute why someone would run like they're catching Pikachu. Before the Zarkax could regroup, another team struck from behind, using cover mechanics straight out of Gears of War. The aliens' perfect formation dissolved into chaos as they tried to track enemies moving by video game logic instead of military training. Shadow Team, Leroy Jenkins Protocol. Now, Martinez watched in astonishment as the remainder of their forces charged the aliens' position, screaming the ancient gaming battle cry. The Zarkax combat computers, trying to identify the tactical significance of the yell, locked up completely. 3 minutes later, the skirmish was over. 7 alien soldiers captured, their advanced weapons and armor now in human hands. No casualties on the human side. I still can't believe this works, Martinez said, helping secure the prisoners. How did you figure it out? Kevin pulled up data from previous encounters on his modified console. It was actually something Dr. Miller said in the emergency broadcasts about how the Zarkax think in pure mathematics. I realized their combat systems would be the same way. Perfect, logical, unbeatable by conventional tactics. He pointed to readouts showing the alien formation patterns. But gamers, we've spent decades learning how to beat perfect AI systems. Every ML raid, every strategy game, every speedrun. It's all about finding patterns that break the computer's logic. One of the captured aliens stirred, its crystalline armor reflecting the sunset. Your tactics are invalid. It spoke through its translator. They follow no known military doctrine. That's exactly the point, Kevin smiled, kneeling beside the alien. Want to know the best part? Your systems keep trying to learn from our encounters, but there's nothing to learn. Every team uses different game strategies. Some are running Halo formations, others use Dark Souls roll dodge timing. You can't predict us because we're not trying to be tactical. We're just playing. Martinez's radio crackled. Colonel, this is command. We're picking up a major alien force moving toward your position. At least 30 units with heavy support. Time to level up, Kevin said, already coordinating their teams through his headset. Colonel, remember that capture the flag strategy we discussed. The one using Super Mario's speedrunning tricks. Martinez nodded, a slow smile spreading across her face. You really think we can take their forward base with that? Their AI is going to be looking for military tactics, fortified approaches, logical strategies. Kevin's fingers flew across his interface, sending position markers to their teams. Instead, we're going to show them what happens when you bring perfect logic to a game fight. Trust me, Colonel. By the time their systems figure out why humans would triple jump over defensive positions instead of attacking them, we'll have their fly and be spawn camping their reinforcements. Above them, alien dropships approached, their formation mathematically flawless. But this time, they weren't facing soldiers following military doctrine. They were up against generations of gamers who had spent their lives learning how to break perfect systems. And Kevin Deathwish Thompson was about to show them exactly why humanity's illogical approach to problem-solving was about to become their greatest weapon. Commander Jack Walker pressed against the cold metal wall of the Zarkax research facility, his modified stealth suit adapting to match the surface temperature. 9 months of fighting had taught humans a lot about alien detection systems, including how to fool them. Security Patrol in 3. Lieutenant Emma Sullivan whispered through their neural comms. The former MIT mathematician was monitoring the facility's rhythm from her position in the server room. Standard deviation 0.001. They're getting sloppy. Walker smiled beneath his mask. The aliens' obsession with perfect patterns made them predictable. Every patrol, every security sweep, executed with mathematical precision. He counted down in his head, then slipped past the intersection exactly between 2 guard rotations. I'm at the primary data core, he subvocalized. How's our window looking? Narrowing. Their system is beautiful, actually. Emma's voice carried the familiar tone she used when discovering a new pattern. It's like they've turned perfect geometric progression into an art form. Every process, every security measure, follows the golden ratio exactly. Save the admiration for after we crack it, Walker replied, reaching the central terminal. He planted the quantum decoder, Emma's creation, built from captured alien tech and human chaos theory algorithms. Interesting, Emma murmured, her fingers flying over holographic displays. Their entire security grid is based on perfect mathematical harmony. Any deviation triggers an alert. It's like they've never considered that imperfection could be an advantage. Warning lights suddenly flashed through the facility. Walker tensed, but Emma's voice remained calm. Don't move, Commander. They haven't detected us. This is amazing. They're running a complete system diagnostic because their sensors detected a dust mote disrupting the laminar airflow in Section 7. They literally can't handle naturally occurring randomness. Walker connected his neural interface to the decoder. What are we looking at in their data core? It's their entire combat database. Combat formations, response patterns, strategic algorithms, all based on perfect mathematical progression. No wonder they keep failing against Kevin's gaming squadrons. Their system crashes if it can't find the geometric logic in an attack pattern. More alarms blared. This time, Emma's voice carried urgency. We've got problems. They're detecting the quantum fluctuations from our decoder, sending you the escape route now. Walker downloaded the core data and planted the charges, regular or chaos route. Chaos. Take the maintenance shaft to sublevel 3, then improvise. Their prediction algorithms can't handle genuine randomness. The more erratic your path, the harder it'll be for them to track you. Walker dove into the maintenance shaft just as crystalline security drones rounded the corner. He let his training fall away, moving on pure instinct. Left, right, straight, back, through a ventilation duct. No pattern, no plan, just human unpredictability in motion. Behind him, alien alert systems struggled to calculate his likely destination. Their perfect algorithms tried to derive meaning from his chaotic path, computing processors overheating as they sought patterns in pure randomness. Emma, talk to me, he whispered, pausing at an intersection. Their entire security grid is spiraling into cascade failure, she replied, excitement clear in her voice. They dedicated so much processing power to predicting your path that they've neglected their basic functions. The commander just ordered all units to maintain absolute geometric formation while searching for you. Walker grinned. Perfect. Trigger the charges. The explosions created exactly the kind of chaos Emma had predicted. The Zarkak's troops, locked into their perfect formations, couldn't react fast enough to the randomly spreading destruction. Walker slipped past their precise search patterns, eventually emerging through a drainage pipe into the underground river system. Hours later, in the resistance bunker beneath Seattle's ruins, Emma presented their findings to Colonel Martinez and Kevin Thompson. The Zarkaks didn't just build their technology on mathematical perfection, she explained, projecting the stolen data. They've evolved to depend on it. Their minds, their entire society, requires patterns and order to function. They're literally incapable of handling true randomness. Which is why my gaming strategies work so well, Kevin interjected. We're not just confusing their computers, we're breaking their minds. Exactly. Emma pulled up her chaos theory equations. And now that we understand their fundamental weakness, we can develop weapons they'll never be able to counter. Because they're not just fighting our technology anymore. They're fighting against the very thing that makes us human, Walker concluded. Our ability to embrace chaos. Above them, the perfect geometric formations of Zarkak's ships continued their patrol patterns, unaware that their greatest strength was about to become their ultimate weakness. Robert Bob Turner hadn't slept in 3 days, but the scattered energy drink cans around his underground Silicon Valley lab were worth it. On his holographic display, an AI system unlike anything humanity had ever created was taking shape. Run simulation sequence Delta 9 again, he mumbled to his assistant VI, pushing his graying hair back from his forehead. The display lit up with a battle scenario, human forces against Zarkak's ships. But this time, something was different. Dr. Miller leaned forward in her chair, watching the simulation unfold. Bob, are those ships performing a medieval cavalry flanking maneuver? Combined with attack patterns from Mass Effect, Bob grinned, his exhausted eyes sparkling. Watch what happens when the Zarkak's algorithm tries to counter it. The alien ships in the simulation formed their typical perfect geometric response pattern, only to have the human forces suddenly switch to submarine warfare tactics. In space, the Zarkak's combat computers froze, unable to process the illogical shift. Operation Mindstorm, Bob explained, pulling up his code architecture. I combined every video game AI we've ever created with historical battle databases and Kevin Thompson's combat logs. The system doesn't generate strategies. It generates controlled chaos. Lieutenant Sullivan stepped in, her chaos theory calculations hovering on her own portable display. You've weaponized gaming AI. How did you overcome the processing limitations? Bob walked to a sealed chamber in the corner, where crystalline components pulsed with alien energy. Turns out Zarkak's quantum processors work perfectly when you don't try to make them perfect. Their technology craves patterns so much that if you feed it randomness, it actually becomes more efficient trying to find order in the chaos. The chamber hummed as new battle scenarios played out. Ancient Roman testudo formations adapted for space combat. World War I submarine wolfpack tactics applied to ground forces, street racing maneuvers for capital ships. The real breakthrough came when I stopped trying to create a better strategic AI. Bob continued, bringing up his latest test results. Instead, I built an AI that dreams up the most insane combinations of human combat experience. Everything from historical battles to the craziest stunts players have ever pulled off in games. Dr. Miller studied the data streams, and because it's powered by their own technology. The Zarkaks can't shut it down, Bob finished. Their systems are designed to engage with our technology, to find patterns they can disrupt. But this, he gestured to the chaos of his creation, this gives them exactly what they want. Patterns to analyze. It's just that each pattern is more impossible than the last. A priority alert flashed across their screens. General Richardson's face appeared on the main display. "Turner, tell me you've got something." "The Zarkax just launched a major offensive against our European defense line. Uploading Operation Mindstorm now, General." Bob's fingers flew across his interface. "I'd recommend starting with the Napoleonic space cavalry protocols. Their combat predictors will never see that coming." Richardson's eyebrow raised slightly, but after 9 months of increasingly bizarre human victories, she learned to trust the unexpected. Make it happen. They watched on the tactical display as the first human ships received the new combat systems. The effect was immediate and devastating. Ships moved in formations that somehow combined the Battle of Waterloo with speedrun techniques from Dark Souls. Ground forces executed pincer movements based on both Alexander the Great's tactics and World of Warcraft raid strategies. The Zarkax response was exactly what they'd hoped for. Alien vessels froze in space, their perfect formations breaking apart as they desperately tried to calculate logical responses to inherently illogical attacks. Their quantum processors, unable to find patterns in the chaos, began to fail. "It's beautiful," Lieutenant Sullivan whispered, watching her chaos theory predictions play out in real combat. "They're so busy looking for the underlying mathematical logic that they can't see the truth." "And what's that?" Dr. Miller asked, though her smile suggested she already knew. "That humanity's greatest military achievement isn't our technology or our strategy." Bob watched as more human forces came online, each adding their own flavor of controlled chaos to the battle. "It's our ability to look at the perfect order of the universe and say, nah, let's try something crazy instead." Above them, in the skies over Europe, the greatest gaming AI ever created was turning humanity's collective history of playing the impossible into a reality that the Zarkax's perfect minds simply couldn't comprehend. Angela Martinez's fingers danced across her salvaged piano keys in the Seattle bunker's makeshift concert hall, her jazz improvisation flowing through sensors that mapped musical patterns into battle algorithms. Commander Vextrix watched with all 4 eyes, his crystalline form trembling slightly as she broke every rule of mathematical progression he'd been taught since birth. "The harmony should resolve," he said, his translator struggling to convey his distress. "The patterns must complete their geometric progression. This is wrong." "That's the whole point." Angela smiled, launching into a particularly chaotic bebop run. Jazz isn't about resolution. It's about the journey, the unexpected, the moments between the notes that make you feel alive. Colonel Martinez watched her daughter work, still amazed that the 25-year-old Juilliard graduate's music theory had become humanity's newest weapon. On the tactical display, human ships were beginning to move in formations that matched Angela's jazz rhythms, creating attack patterns that made the alien targeting systems crash. "Your combat computers are trying to predict where the melody's going," Angela explained to Vextrix, her hands never stopping. "But real jazz, real improvisation, it flows from feeling, from the moment. You can't predict it because even I don't know what I'm going to play next." Vextrix's secondary appendages twitched toward the piano. "May I attempt?" The room tensed. Despite his defection 3 weeks ago, letting an alien commander near their newest tactical breakthrough was risky. But Colonel Martinez nodded. They'd learned more about Zarkax psychology from Vextrix's reactions to human chaos than from months of combat. The alien commander's crystalline fingers touched the keys hesitantly. He began to play a mathematically perfect sequence, each note exactly measured, each harmony resolving precisely as their musical theory demanded. Angela waited 8 bars, then joined in, weaving an improvised melody through his rigid structure. Something changed in Vextrix's posture. His perfect timing faltered. His measurements began to slip, and for the first time since his defection, he did something no Zarkax had done in 10 generations. He improvised. The note wasn't in any alien scale. It didn't belong in the mathematical progression. But it felt right, and Vextrix's hands began to shake as he processed the implications. "Impossible," he whispered, but his fingers found another unplanned note, then another. "Our entire society is built on perfect progression. Our music, our combat, our very thoughts, all following the eternal mathematics. But this feels. Feels what?" Angela encouraged, her jazz line weaving supportively around his hesitant exploration. "Free," Vextrix said, and played a discord that would have gotten him executed in Zarkak's society. Colonel Martinez's communicator buzzed. "Ma'am, you need to see this. We're picking up massive energy fluctuations in the Zarkak's fleet. Their formations are destabilizing." The tactical display showed alien ships struggling to maintain their perfect geometric patterns as Angela's jazz-inspired attack algorithms spread through human forces. But something else was happening. The Zarkak's communications were changing. "They're receiving our musical warfare broadcasts," Lieutenant Sullivan reported, rushing into the room with her chaos theory displays active. "But instead of just disrupting their systems, it's affecting their crew. We're picking up variations in their usually perfect communication patterns. Some ships are actually beginning to move irregularly." Vextrix's crystalline form flickered with emotion. "You don't understand what you've done. Our society enforces mathematical perfection because we once had chaos, creativity, art, imagination. It nearly destroyed us. The Great Ordering saved our species by purging such dangerous irregularities. But now," he played another forbidden discord, "now you've reminded us what we lost." Angela's music swelled, her improvisation carrying hints of both human jazz and alien mathematical progressions. On the tactical displays, more Zarkak ships began breaking formation, their crews exposed to something they hadn't experienced in centuries. The beauty of imperfection. "Send everything," Colonel Martinez ordered. "Every jazz recording, every improvised performance. Not just to their combat systems, broadcast directly to their crews." As Angela's hybrid human-alien melody filled the command center, the tactical displays showed something unprecedented. A Zarkak's battle group attempting to improvise its own formation. It was clumsy, imperfect, beautiful, and completely immune to the collective's control protocols. "The art of chaos," Vextrix said softly, his fingers finding their own path through the music. "You're not just defeating us. You're setting us free." Commander Jack Walker stood on the bridge of the modified strike vessels, Tarcaster, a hybrid of human ingenuity and salvage Zarkak's technology. Beside him, Vextrix monitored the alien fleet's movements through reformed crystalline displays. "Your plan violates 17 fundamental principles of space combat," Vextrix noted, his translator carrying a hint of what humans had learned to recognize as amusement. "The collective strategists will never expect it." "That's the point," Walker grinned, watching as Operation Wildcard's forces assembled. Each ship in their fleet had been modified according to a different human combat doctrine. Some carried ancient Greek fire adapted for space warfare. Others were equipped with medieval siege engines reconfigured for zero-gravity battles. "How's our music coming along, Angela?" Angela Martinez's voice came through the comm, accompanied by the sound of her improvisational jazz, broadcasting on all frequencies. Kevin's team merged it with his gaming soundtracks. "You should hear what dubstep does to their targeting systems." The tactical display showed the Zarkak's fleet arranged in their typical perfect geometric formation above Earth's atmosphere. But something was different. Small disruptions in their patterns, ships slightly out of position. The effects of humanity's chaos offensive were spreading. "All units report ready," Colonel Martinez announced from her command ship. "Operation Wildcard is go. Launch the first phase. Let's show them what human history can do." Walker gave the signal. The first wave of ships accelerated forward, executing a perfect recreation of Alexander the Great's cavalry tactics in 3 dimensions. The Zarkak's computers, programmed to expect logical space combat patterns, struggled to compute the relevance of ancient Macedonian battle strategies in vacuum. Second wave. Commence gaming gambit, Walker ordered. Kevin Thompson's voice crackled over the comm. Deploying speed-running strats now. Show them why you don't bring mathematical perfection to a game fight. A squadron of smaller ships broke formation, performing maneuvers based on video game physics exploits. They clipped through the Zarkak's predicted defense zones, like players finding shortcuts in a game's collision detection. Their flagship's combat computers are approaching critical failure, Vextrix reported, his crystalline form vibrating with suppressed excitement. They cannot process the simultaneous application of historical combat doctrine and digital warfare physics. Lieutenant Sullivan's chaos theory calculations streamed across their displays. The disruption is cascading through their network. Their attempts to find patterns in our attack are overloading their systems. Now, Commander. Final phase, Walker announced. All ships, execute Operation Symphony. Angela's jazz, now merged with classical human battle hymns and remixed with modern electronic music, blasted across all frequencies. Ships moved in rhythm to the impossible melody, their attacks synchronized to music that refused to follow mathematical progression. The effect on the Zarkak's fleet was immediate and devastating. Ships began breaking formation, their crews caught between their ingrained need for perfect order and the awakening memory of creative freedom that Vextrix had discovered. Look, Angela's voice carried triumph. They're trying to dance. Indeed, several Zarkak's vessels had begun moving in irregular patterns, attempting to match the human music's rhythm. Their crews, exposed to chaos theory and human creativity for months, were finally breaking free from their species' self-imposed restrictions. This isn't just a victory, Vextrix said softly. This is an evolution. My people are remembering what it means to create, to imagine, to break free from perfect patterns. Walker watched as more alien ships joined what was becoming less of a battle and more of a dance. Colonel Martinez, are you seeing this? Affirmative, she replied. The collective's control over their fleet is dissolving. Individual ship commanders are beginning to improvise their own movements. They're making art. The space above Earth had become a symphony of chaos and creativity. Human ships performing impossible historical maneuvers, gaming squadrons executing physics-defying attacks, all moving to the rhythm of humanity's combined musical heritage. And among them, Zarkak's vessels learning to break free from their geometric prisons, discovering that imperfection could be beautiful. Send the final message, Walker ordered. Let's end this war not with perfect destruction, but with beautiful chaos. As Angela's jazz echoed through space, the greatest battle in human history transformed into something else entirely, a celebration of everything that made humanity gloriously, wonderfully unpredictable. And in their broken formations, the Zarkak's began to understand why their perfect invasion had been doomed from the start. Dr. Amanda Miller stood before the collective's High Council, her translator now programmed to convey not just words but musical tones, adding jazz-like inflections to her speech. The crystalline chamber, once a monument to perfect geometry, now bore signs of change. Subtle asymmetries and artistic flourishes that would have been heretical just months ago. The terms of peace are unconventional, she began, sharing a knowing look with Vextrix, who now served as a bridge between both species. But then, conventionality is what led us here in the first place. The High Council's leader, Supreme Commander Zixtal, shifted uncomfortably in his crystalline form. Like many Zarkak's, he bore the marks of transformation. Small imperfections in his once perfect geometric patterns, signs of emerging individuality. You offer to teach us. Zixtal's translator carried confusion. After we attempted to conquer your world, you proposed to share knowledge rather than demand reparations. General Richardson stepped forward, her uniform decorated with both human medals and crystalline honors from reformed Zarkak's battle groups. We've learned as much from this conflict as you have. Your technology, combined with our creativity, has opened possibilities neither species imagined. On the chamber's displays, footage played from the new joint training facilities on Mars. Human instructors teaching Zarkax officers the art of improvisation through jazz, gaming, and historical battle reenactments. Alien scientists learning to embrace chaos theory not as a threat, but as a tool for innovation. Look at what we've already accomplished, Angela Martinez added, gesturing to a group of Zarkax musicians attempting their first improvised performance. Their crystalline instruments, once capable of only mathematically perfect progressions, now produced hauntingly beautiful hybrid melodies. Kevin Thompson, now heading the Cultural Integration Gaming Division, pulled up statistics on his modified console. Zarkax ships equipped with our hybrid chaos logic systems are 50% more efficient than their traditional counterparts. Turns out a little randomness in the equations actually improves performance. But the real breakthrough, Lieutenant Sullivan continued, is in your society's development. Since embracing controlled chaos, your species has made more technological advances in 3 months than in the previous century of perfect order. Commander Walker nodded toward a group of young Zarkax playing what looked suspiciously like an alien version of basketball. You didn't just gain military knowledge from us. You remembered how to play, how to create, how to live without the burden of perpetual perfection. Vextrix stepped into the center of the chamber, his form now proudly displaying the asymmetrical patterns that marked him as one of the first awakened Zarkax. My people stand at a crossroads. We can return to the sterile perfection of pure mathematics, or we can embrace this new path, one where order and chaos dance together in balance. The choice, Dr. Miller added softly, is whether you want to be perfect or whether you want to be alive. Supreme Commander Zixtol rose, his crystalline form catching the light in ways that would have once been considered flaws, but now created beautiful refractions. When we came to Earth, we thought we were superior beings destined to impose order on a chaotic species. Instead, you showed us that our greatest weakness was our fear of imperfection. He touched a control, and the chamber's rigid geometric patterns began to shift, flowing into new forms that combined mathematical precision with artistic freedom. The peace terms are accepted, not as a concession of defeat, but as an opportunity for rebirth. As if on cue, Angela began to play, her jazz piano mixing with the crystalline harmonics of Zarkax instruments. Around them, the chamber's patterns moved to the music, order and chaos intertwining in a dance of transformation. And so humanity's greatest victory, Dr. Miller noted in her final report, came not from destroying our enemy, but from teaching them how to break free from their own chains. In seeking to perfect themselves, the Zarkax had imprisoned themselves. In embracing our chaos, they found their way back to freedom. Outside the chamber, Earth and Zarkax ships patrolled together, their formations a beautiful blend of precision and improvisation. And in classrooms across both worlds, a new generation learned that the universe's greatest achievements came not from perfect order or pure chaos, but from the courage to dance between the two.